Hello, everyone. Happy Friday. This is 360 of Opera Live. Our guest today is Larry Brownlee. There he is, right on time. Let me let him in. There we go. Hello, Larry.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you? It's so good to have you with us.
Thank you. It's nice to be with you. I'm fine. How are you doing?
Good. Doing good. Are you drinking coffee?
I am drinking tea this time, actually.
Very nice.
Have some tea there.
We're definitely coffee and tea people here.
How you doing? Good?
Good, doing good. I'm in New York. Where are you?
I'm in Florida. I'm in a place called Niceville, Florida. Very
Nice.
close to, like Pleasantville, right? It's called Niceville, Florida. So, yeah, that's where I am right now. I'm at home with my family, so.
Very nice, very nice. So I'm gonna go right ahead to our questions because I'm sure everyone's gonna have a lot of questions of their own that we'll get to the Q&A part towards the end. So one of the main reasons why I wanted to have you here is to talk about your new show, your new series, The Sit Down with
Yes.
LP. So can you share a little bit with us what inspired you to start this new series, what it is about, who your guests are?
Oh my gosh, what inspired me to do it? I'm asked all the time by young singers of color, African American singers, or even African singers, even some other minorities, we call them minorities, maybe even Hispanic or Asian, about being successful in a predominantly Caucasian business, which is opera. Of course, every day we're becoming more culturalized, or you want to call it a lot more diverse. And so that's good. I started in an era where, especially for men, it wasn't so many people, especially tenors.
Yeah.
You know, with tenors being the romantic leads, we always have the potential of having to kiss someone on stage and how that looks. And if you think about COVID-19 right now, talk about going back in the theaters, the people that come there most of the time are of the older generation. And so if you think about, again, this idea of a black man kissing someone and it's being viewed largely by older generations, in the past, that was thought of as problematic. And so for me, you know, having been fortunate to have, had some success in this business, I feel like it's a good opportunity now where we're all grounded essentially at home to field questions, but also to ask information, ask some of my colleagues who've been successful, some that are a bit younger than me, some that are older than me, but just to have discussions for the thousands of questions that people have in their mind about being Black in this business.
So you had your first guest was Angel Blue.
Angel Blue.
And yes. Then you're having your next one on Sunday, correct?
Yes, Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll have George Shirley. For me, one of my idols, when I thought about taking on this crazy idea of trying to pursue a career in opera, I needed someone to look at to say, who can I try to pattern myself off of? Who can I look to that looked something like me? That I could even believe it a little bit more. For a lot of Black women, you have so many people. Of course, Leontine Price. Of course, the late Jessie Norman, Kathleen Battle, Grace Bumbry, Shirley Barrett, named on and on and on and on and on. Especially sopranos and mezzos. Yeah. But for the men, most of the people were Paul Robeson, who didn't have a huge operatic career, but more concerts and songs and guest appearances. But as far as like people who did primarily opera, there were few. And so one of the people that I could look to was George Shirley. And so he gave me a great deal of inspiration. And so he's become a great friend and mentor of mine.
Yeah, you raise a very important topic. which is why diversity is so important, is that as young artists, we all need mentors and people
Of
we
course.
look up to who can guide us. And if we only see one type of person on stage, it can be very hard to find inspiration for
Exactly.
everyone. Mhm.
Exactly. And part of that also, one of the things I've been doing as of late, me and my buddy, one of my really good friends, Morris Robinson, we've been talking about this for a while, about expanding audiences and growing them. But the way you can do this is by seeing people on stage. If you can be in the theater and see something that is on stage that is believable, I think you will enjoy it a little bit more. And so what we're trying to do is, of course, increase diversity amongst the people in the audiences and on the stage, but also in administration, because that's an
Yeah.
important part of it. Because
Mhm.
as long as we don't give, as long as we don't have, representation in all these areas, progress will be stymied. And so it's important to have that in all facets of this career. And so that is one of the, main things we talk about on my show.
Absolutely. Amazing. So I encourage everyone to tune in. I saw the episode with Angel and it was fantastic. It's really, I think for us, for young artists and for the audience, it's so cool to get to see you and your colleagues interact, and have these discussions.
Yeah.
Um, so talking about this idea of diversity, one thing that I think is so unique and great about you is the diversity in your repertoire, because you're an amazing bel canto specialist, but really in the last few years, you've been involved in contemporary works and new operas,
Mhm.
with a variety of styles in them, jazz influence. So can you share a little bit about with us about this and how you approach these different styles?
Well, the interesting thing about all these styles is the last one I came to was opera. Before I started
Uh-huh.
anything else, I started in church singing gospel. So
Hmm.
that was my first love. And my father was a choir, not any, he doesn't do it anymore, but he was the choir director, and my mother sang solos. I'm one of 6 kids, so we had a very large musical family. We used to sing together as a family, and we had a very large church that was very close. And so we had a large extended family, and music was always there. So gospel, people singing, going to concerts, playing instruments in church, that was where I first started as far as like me being pulled towards music. And then when I got into
Hmm.
high school, I got involved. Well, junior high school, I got involved in band and choir. So everything from madrigals and choral stuff I did. And then when I got into high school, I got into show choir. In show choir, we did Broadway tunes, but also jazz stuff and a mixture of just everything. And then I was involved in the same time being in show choir, which was actually outside of my high school, but a part of it, if that makes sense. It was
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
all the 5 high schools of my city. That was a small group of
Hmm.
12. But then I had my own choir at my school that had a very good choir and men's
Hmm.
ensemble. So I was involved in those as well. So I did
Hmm.
madrigals and show tunes and everything else. And then when I got out of college and my last year in high school, I would sing contemporary like pop stuff with the group. And then I used to work at a place called Cedar Point Amusement Park in
Uh-huh.
Sandusky, Ohio, where I was a singer dancer, and I did that type of stuff too. So I did a whole bunch of things before I came to opera. And so
Hmm.
now is an opportunity, even though I'm a trained opera singer, and as you said, I guess I can call myself a bel canto specialist. My musical background and my maturation came from all these styles. And I'll tell you the truth, a lot of these things that I've done in the past really informs what I do with, I think all of this
Yeah.
stuff comes into the same box. And
Uh-huh.
stylistically, there are some things that you have to do. But I think, for example, the fact that I have certain fluidness in my voice, I sing coloratura. So I sing gospel. And if you sing gospel with all these melismas and stuff like that, it's helpful. And so, of course, they say that gospel is sung with heart. And one of the things I always try to do when I sing my bel canto stuff or any of the other stuff that I'm singing now is try to make sure that there is an element of heart in it. So
Yes.
everything is all in the same box, and you can use all of these tools, I guess, to influence what you do in your music.
So you bring up this idea of musical education and your family, and I can't help but think about all the videos you share with your kids that are so adorable. I'm such a fan of your kids. I just saw it today. Actually, I saw the one you share with your daughter where she's practicing the amizami.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's so good. So, yes, I wanted to ask you a little bit, what can you share with us about the importance of music in education, and specifically, I mean, with your own kids and this extra time that you've had with them right now?
Well, music for me was, people talking about, people will say sometimes that, oh, music changed my life, but I have to say it did, and I was always a good kid and I came from a good family, especially being a black man. I had both parents in the home, very loving. My father had a good factory job, but, we grew up very middle class. And we went to a high school that provided arts, and arts was so important. When I was 15 years old was the first time I got a chance to step outside of the United States. Who does that, And by the time I graduated from high school, I had seen 4 other countries, and that's just something that's not so common. So for me, I was happy to have that experience. And so now, fast forwarding to being a parent, I know that they've taken a lot of programs out of schools. And my daughter and son, they're only 8 and 9 years old. But as they get older, I'm hoping that there are, and I believe there are where we live, programs for music, for band and art and show choir and everything else, because it does give you a direction. And studies have shown that if kids have some type of background in music or science or something like that, they will excel farther. So it really is important. As much as I can, my daughter, she's interested in music. My son, he's 9 years old, he's autistic. He loves music as well. His school is a little bit differently structured, and so you don't have programs per se that are with music in it, but it is an element that I try to bring home. Of course, I'm an artist, so sometimes I'm at home and they'll hear me sing or hear me prepare something, or if I'm doing the coffee and a song or some of these other projects that I'm working on, they'll hear it. And so my daughter's interested and she'll try to do it. But it is important. It is an important element of maturation and growth. And I hope to continue to bring this to them.
Yeah. And so you are involved yourself also on a more worldwide scale. Let's say you're involved in a lot of projects as with outreach and education. And I know with Opera Philadelphia, you're an advisor, correct?
Yes. I'm an artistic advisor.
So can you tell us a little bit about what you do with them?
Well, part of, one of the things that I've been trying to do with these various companies, I also work with Lyric Opera of Chicago in a capacity where I'm somewhat of a community ambassador. They have a program called Lyric Unlimited. So I got a chance to work with them. Also, Opera Philadelphia, I am an artistic advisor, working with the general director, working with the new works administrator, working with all these various people to try to be an advocate for new works, but also, again, this idea of expanding diversity. They want to be able to talk to a performing artist who travels around the world, who sees other opera companies and what they're doing. If you look at an opera company and see that they have a good youth movement, Opera Philadelphia feels that this is important to be able to perhaps implement some of these things into what Opera Philadelphia is doing in order to try to expand. And every city, every culture has its own vibe and own unique thing. So you can't throw a blanket idea, but perhaps to be able to use some of these elements for them to be successful. But again, this idea is really about reaching out to people and being an example of someone who's young. I'm relatively young and vibrant, but to hopefully encourage these people to be able to be interested to coming to the Opera House, because we're putting on the stage some interesting things that they can relate to. So yes, that's a part of the things I'm doing right now, and I'm very excited about being a part of the artists who are in the trenches really fighting for our art form.
Yes. And so as we have this extra time in quarantine, I feel like it's been kind of a general topic. You know, people are also showcasing, you know, their other interests and their hobby, or, you know, now we have time to do other things. And I feel like you're a person who pre-quarantine, you already have so many cool hobbies like photography and tennis. I'm a big tennis fan, so.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes.
Who's your favorite tennis player?
Nadal.
Okay. Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
I'm a Rafa person. No,
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah, I don't mind. I don't mind Rafa. I don't mind Rafa. I'm a big Djokovic fan.
Okay, yes.
Big
yes.
Djokovic fan. But go ahead.
So you already had all these hobbies like photography and tennis, and can you share with us how because we all agree that sometimes, you know, with school and young artists, a lot of people are trained to be so single focused that it doesn't necessarily serve every personality. So can you tell us, you as someone who has so many other interests, how do those inform your artistry?
Well, I think it really adds to the whole person. And I don't think really being singularly focused and laser beam focused on singing is healthy. Because a lot of times people ask me about being on the road. And if I'm on the road and all I have is music, I don't think that's great, because you miss so many things. You miss your family. You miss some of the conveniences of being at home. Even, you know, when I travel to Europe or to Asia, or, you know, some of these places don't have 24-hour, you know, walk-in services, you know, services at Walmart or Target or anything else like that. And you begin to miss things. So I always tell people to try to make being on the road like being at home. So even before the quarantine, I used to take my tennis rackets. I used to take my ping pong paddles, because I'm pretty, you know, serious about ping pong as well. But also, I'm very much into photography. I'm also very into salsa dancing. And I'm very, I'm like a salsa, but I have been for a while, a salsa junkie. Most people know that. But what this allows me to do is to feel fulfilled when I'm on the road. So in many of these places that I travel, I have friends who live there. When I get there the first night, because I've been to some of these cities over and over and over again, so it's not like I'm going for the first time. But I'll go to Vienna and I have like 15 friends. They're like, oh my gosh, Larry's in town, so everybody on Wednesday go to this place, the normal place. And some people, you know how, you know, everybody goes every week, but some people fall off and you begin to work. But when they know I'm coming to town, okay, Larry's here this week, so everybody come back. And so that's important to me. I remember times where I got off the stage at like Vienna Staatsoper, and I would go right afterwards, I would go to a salsa dancing club. And I like the idea of getting off the stage, and if you know, even if you have accolades and people appreciate what you do, 5 minutes later you're just a regular guy who fits in with everyone else and no one knows what you do. I love that. And so but that helps me to stay grounded in a way, and just to make sure the whole person that is Larry is fulfilled as, you know, as a person.
Yes, 100% everything you just said. So since we have a lot of people tuning in that are young artists.
I saw someone from Turkey, actually. Turkey, and I think maybe someone said they're from Turkey, so that's pretty cool.
I saw some Istanbul. So
Istanbul,
since you've been around the block for a while, do you have any advice to share for, you know, young artists, especially right now with this tricky situation we're in, to, you know, I don't know, something to share that could help them stay focused and motivated during this time?
Well, I'm trying to, you know, they really should feel, I've been telling people, because I've done a few, you know, interactive talks and Zooms and stuff like that. This is an opportunity where people can do something and feel that they've accomplished something once we come out of COVID. By that, I mean, take something that you can work on. If you look at the fact that we're limited, we can't travel, we can't do all the things we want to do, we can't actively perform. What can I do that when I get out of COVID, I can hit the ground running. For example, I told someone that one of the things I've been planning to do for a while is to look at Die Schöne Müllerin, and I've been wanting to do that song cycle. Now was a great time for me to be able to break that down and take the time and learn something so that when I'm out of this, hopefully, you know, and I've already been talking to my management, hopefully I'll be able to really schedule some of these things and program these things. But if I am trying to catch up later, what am I doing now? We have nothing but opportunity ahead of us. So what can you think about doing for yourself? Youssef, my friend, what can you think about doing yourself and being productive? And you should be able to look at the fact that, okay, I did something. This was my Corona project. So have a Corona project, have a COVID, you know, focus, learn a new skill, learn something that you can say during the time. I just didn't waste the time always on Instagram or Facebook and doing this stuff, but I actually made sure that I can look at this. This was my Corona project, and this is the success I've made during this time that we had. So, and I think any young student, any young person going from undergrad to grad school to young artist programs, there's so much uncertainty, but make sure that you take advantage of this time so you can be ahead of the ones who are really just hanging out and getting fatter on the couch like I am.
Yes, yes, absolutely. I love the hashtag Corona project.
Yeah. Anna, there's Anna.
Anna, you see. Hi, guys.
Yes.
Well,
Anna, oh my gosh, Anna is putting, every day she like makes something that I want to like eat my screen on my phone.
Yes.
Because she's like such a fantastic, I told her, I sent her a message. I was like, I'm just looking at your pictures and gaining weight. So thank you, Anna.
Yes, there's definitely been some delicious things out there.
Oh gosh, they look so good. Yeah.
That can be a Corona project as well, for sure.
We're definitely all doing it, Anna.
Yeah, we're all gonna be better cooks after this, for sure.
Yeah, there you go.
So I wanted to touch on what's happening in the USA right now.
Mm-hmm.
You shared a beautiful video yesterday to honor George Floyd, and since we have a lot of international followers, and I'm an immigrant. I've been in the States for 10 years, but I know very well from my own perspective that even if the news arrive internationally, it's not, the information is not complete. You know, there's a distance to it. So I think if there's a message that you could have on this topic for everyone, it would be an honor to hear it from you. Well,
admittedly, this has been a very difficult week for, I think, most Black people in the United States. It's been tough. Even if we start from the incident in Central Park. And the young lady who decided that she, as we've been saying, weaponized calling the police. She tried to excite the situation or amp up the situation to the point that the police would arrive in a certain way to confront this person. Why didn't she just put her dog on a leash? I mean, the incident came from this guy who is a dedicated bird watcher who's on the Audubon Society for the city of New York. He was telling her or asking her, because that was where it was, you know, clearly printed that she should do this. But she took offense to the fact that a Black man, she didn't know that he was Harvard educated, one of the most important institutions in the United States and arguably the world, that she didn't know who she was talking to, but she just saw a Black man that pretty much, it offended her to the point that she would make sure that she would show him his place in this society. So for the people that are watching internationally, we have a long documented history of racism in our country. Of course, my ancestors were brought over here as slaves. And a lot of people will look at the fact that Barack Obama was the president before our current occupier of the White House. And so, you know, people think, oh, well, black people in the United States don't have a problem. That is absolutely inaccurate. And I think what's happened since the most recent president, I'll call him the occupier of 1600 Avenue, has pulled the scab off the wound of what America is. It's never really healed. And I think the only reason that Barack Obama rose to be the president is because he was half black and not fully black. I don't, with Hillary Clinton not becoming the president, I still think that there is still a ceiling that certain people, certain minorities can't, we can't crack that. So it's a lot of hurt right now. People don't understand internationally, perhaps, what it feels like. But when I am a man who spends a lot of time in New York City, I'm walking at a dog park, and just me looking at someone, and she assumes a certain thing about me. She looks at me and doesn't know all the things I've been fortunate to accomplish. But she just sees me because of my skin as a threat, and how a situation as simple as that could turn into a fatality, because the cops will come already with a certain mindset based upon my color alone. When you think about the guy George Floyd in Minnesota, and people are rioting right now, people are upset because he pleaded for his life. He did not resist arrest based on what we've seen. And so how the police mentality is so amped up and so brutal towards people of color, they treated him less than an animal. And so when we see that person laying on the ground, any black man, we see ourselves in them.
Yeah.
And that's the hard part. And the thing, we've been saying this for forever since we've been in the United States. But here's the thing. The only reason why now it seems to be a bigger issue is because of cell phones. If there hadn't been cell phones in either of those instances, or the Ahmaud Arbery or some of these other things, it would still be swept under the rug. If you think of the fact that they said in Minneapolis, this was contradicting what the police had put down. So there's code that people can say these things happen, but it's absolutely the opposite. And so people filming now really are trying to bring these things to light. So there's a lot of pain in my community. There's a lot of hurt, but this is for many, 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 many years. And when you begin to think about thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people that have lost their lives because there wasn't any phone footage, this is even the more troubling. So that's what we're dealing with right now.
Yes. Thank you so much for explaining that to everyone. Yeah. So yeah, it's been a tough week for everyone here. On top of Corona, it's unbelievable. as if not enough was happening. Yeah. It's it's a time in history that we'll look back. Hopefully we get beyond this and say this is one of those times like the era of the Vietnam War, or like the era of World War II, because this is an international thing, the coronavirus. And so for someone, who travels all the time internationally, I spend so much time on airplanes, in the airports, in lounges, in hotels. I've been home now for almost 3 months straight. And I've done that before, but it was always knowing that I would be going on to somewhere else. And so right now, I don't know when I'll perform again in the United States. There's talk of some things slowly opening up. And so hopefully those things will happen. But for right now, for the foreseeable future, I'm at home. I'm grounded. Yeah. And especially as singers, we're so vulnerable health-wise as well, because we really don't want to get sick. Well, we don't want to get sick. Really? Well, I mean, we can't do our jobs well if we're sick. And we learn technique, and we learn about doing certain things, getting through it. Because another thing that I think is going to change is the structure of our jobs and our contracts, because we have no safety net. So we live for performances. So if we don't perform, we don't eat, and so we don't want to get sick. If we get sick, we can't, we don't do our best jobs. And especially with social media now, you do a bad job and it's on the internet
2 minutes after you get off stage. And so there's so much pressure in this business, but I think the structure it'll have to change. And I've already spoken to a few advisors, administrators, and stuff like that. And so they're already working on how we can better address the life of an artist that is contracted sometimes for 2 and 3 years before they get there and they turn down other jobs, how to protect them so they're not just left with nothing.
Yeah, yeah. And I think one of the big topics would be, I think it was just delayed. I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, sure.
One of the main, I think one of the two main points is singers should be paid for rehearsal time. Mm-hmm. And also if there has to be this idea of the force majeure needs to be addressed. So the singers should be able to, if there's a cancellation, to still get a part of the fee.
Right. Well, I know that this is being discussed in many different forms amongst agents in theaters, especially the agents. I have very, very good friends of mine who are agents, and it's hard for them. You know, your business is corralling a bunch of artists, and even if you have a pretty decent income, when these artists are not performing, you also depend on their performances. And then you have a huge situation like the pandemic, and the income stream for them also at a larger level, because we're thinking about one person's income, but they're thinking about all these people in these incomes and all the things that they have to take care of as far as like the building costs and travel costs and everything else. It's a lot to deal with. So yes, many people are discussing it, and we have to figure out a better way to address this. We need to make sure that the closer you get to the contract, if you arrive at a certain day, which I think will put more responsibility on the artist as well, you should already arrive ready to go.
Yeah.
But you come ready to go. And if you're at a certain level, the company should be able to say, okay, they've done their part thus far, so they're deserving of this X amount of dollars. And we have to decide, or they have to decide what that is. But the further we go along in the contract, there should be also some more compensation. If you arrive to the final dress performance and then you don't do the first performance, you've done all the stuff you've had to do, plus you paid for housing and food and all your utilities and everything else in a city that is not your own. And why should you be completely out when you were brought there by that theater? So I think we need to find a way to address some of these things so we are better protected as artists, because even if you have some artists, you say they perform at a higher level, the higher you go, the higher your expenses are sometimes, you know? And so it is important that we make sure that these people are taken care of.
Yes, totally. I think what a lot of people maybe that are not singers or so inside of the business forget that most singers have to pay their housing, their travel, all up front. And if something gets canceled, I'm sure a lot of those things were not refunded.
Absolutely.
That's a problem.
Think of it like this. If you go to a city and you rent an apartment for Airbnb, and your performances, you're in Paris for 2 months, okay? You have 5 weeks of rehearsals, and then you have another 3.5 weeks. If you have force majeure, you've paid for 3.5 weeks or whatever for an apartment in excess of what you've done thus far. You've done the rehearsal period, and now you're not doing performances. You have this apartment that you're probably not going to stay in, so you've lost that money. Plus, you have to pay the expenses to change your ticket to go back home. And I don't think people realize, they think that opera companies pay for your housing. They don't. No. They think they pay for your flights. A lot of them now don't anymore. They've changed it that you're responsible for your flights. Of course, you're responsible for your food. You're responsible for any gym memberships or cell phones or bus passes or all the expenses that a person can have in a city. You are personally responsible for those. And then if you're not paid, I mean, you're, at a certain point, a person like myself who's been in the business for like 20 years, you can kind of live off some of the money that you've made in the past, but you have that money earmarked for stuff you want to do in the future. And you're like, okay, I have to adjust things because I was expecting that I would get X amount of dollars. And so when you don't get that, it changes, it upsets the apple cart, as we call it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, I mean, so much is up in the air, but we're seeing that things are slowly starting a little bit in Europe. In
Yes.
the summer, I see a lot of people in rehearsal on Instagram, like, oh, I want to be in
Yes,
rehearsal.
exactly. Exactly.
So do you see, what do you anticipate? It's looking like for a while it's going to be much more concert work since it's easier to rehearse, you know, one pianist, one person distance.
Yes. You know, I don't know. I've already talked to, you know, obviously I've been reached out to by different theaters and different organizations, and them trying to figure out with reduced audiences or having a large, you know, component of what we're doing be online. And so I think everybody's very much in this mindset of being experimental. We don't know what's going to happen. So I had concerts that have not officially been canceled. Everything pretty much has been canceled up to September. Okay. And so I had concerts that were supposed to be in Hungary and in Slovakia, in Vienna, and not Vienna, somewhere close to Vienna, but Napoli. And so I don't know if these things will happen. And I think everybody's trying to get their footing with the next couple of weeks to see how things will go. Because, you know, once we get a better understanding of how some of these methods work, I think more people will be okay, fine to try to pursue something else and say, okay, let us try this once they see that it is functioning well in other places. So I'm crossing my fingers that some of these experimental things, and my heart goes out, and I'm thankful for these companies, these organizations who are programming things to lead the way, to say, okay, we can do this, we've thought this out, and I hope this can really take fire, catch fire, and more organizations really opening up and getting artists back on stage.
Yes, yes. And I'm curious about what you think about some of these things that companies are exploring, like drive-in opera. I would love that.
Yeah, I think it's great.
Summer. And yeah,
I think it's great. You know, I think all of us, you know, it says complacency is the death of art or something like that. Have you heard that saying? I think complacency is the death of art. I think we can't be complacent. We have to be creative. We have to find a way to look at how do we do this now. The way that we've done it before is not going to function. Everybody wants to get back to what we were doing. We have to have a better version of what we're doing. So if times like this come again, we have a structure that's set up that the world won't be shaken off, you know, just thrown off kilter with a terrible pandemic. We know that the potential of something like this happening again is out there. Okay. But if we can take the steps to figure out a model or way we can better ensure what we do, I think we're all going to be better off. So hopefully someone will lead the way and we can be better prepared.
Yes, 100%. I'm also curious what your experience has been with all these live performances, like the Met Gala. How did it feel? Because I feel like the general consensus has been that you still get a performance rush, even if it's different.
Yeah, well, we do. You know, if you think of it, we are artists, and the same thing that informs us when we walk on the Met stage, when we walk on the Scala in Vienna and Paris, is the same thing when you put yourself before the public. Even if you're in the comfort of your own home, you realize that these things can be so far-reaching. And the power of social media is that you can do it in my home in Florida right now, but someone in Turkey is watching right now. And you're in New York City? Are you in New York?
Yeah.
Okay, you're in New York City. But how we're connected and how far-reaching it is. So if you make a blunder or a gaffe, someone will know that instantly because it's, you know, visible and you can replay it a lot of the times. And so, you know, we as artists, you know, I mean, you know this, we as artists, we're these type of people that, you know, we're hypersensitive about what we do. We don't want to make mistakes. We don't want to be flat. We don't want to crack. We don't have all these other things too. So we want to, okay, well, I still have to sing for, actually, singing online is probably more nerve-wracking.
More people are watching.
There you go. It's more contained in a theater. You're like, even if people record it, it's more contained in a theater that, okay, you're at the Met, 3,900 people can see this. But online, 39,000 or 39 million potentially can see this. So you want to make sure, okay, make sure I'm in tune and I don't have the acoustics of the building. But it can give you, some people can have anxiety even more, I think, about performing online. But it's been fun to do it. People say, and I've had some conversations with some of my artist colleagues, and we've talked about performing online. And, I know people have talked about us cheapening, if you will, what it is we do by performing online, because, we are artists that we get paid for our art, and people should see the value in it. But I told someone this: I am an artist, so I want to create art. And what we're doing now is, in a time where there's so much negativity, I think is important to bring something that is a sense of a salve or a comfort to people. And so that's what we're doing. And hopefully it will inspire people to come to the theater, because nothing, in my opinion, nothing replaces the live experiences, the live theater experience. And so I'm happy to be involved in it. And, it gives me a wonderful outlet to be able to, as an artist, to be able to share what it is I have in my heart.
Yeah. And I think all this art that is being put out there, being created, being shared, the broadcasts and live streams, I think people won't forget. I agree with you. I think it will inspire people once this is over and once it's safe to go see performances. Also, because we're all tired of being home. I'm tired of watching the TV. I want to go see a live performance. And I think it's going to be this effect of, like, once we can go out, even if I don't have money, I'm going to figure it out to go see something live.
I think the floodgates are going to be open and people are going to be running to the theaters.
Yeah.
Once it's safe. We hope that. And not just from a financial standpoint. Yes, we do this so we can survive, so we can pay our bills. Yes, it is a part of that. But I think that people will appreciate, and they already do, really appreciate the beauty of assembling in a place that is dedicated to art. And people can go there and have that experience that nothing substitutes. Nothing can take the place of that. Hearing someone sing that final high note or do whatever, or Traviata or something like that, you're like, when Mimi dies in Bohème and you're in the theater and, like Marcello and Colline is trying to comfort Rodolfo and they deliver that moment so beautifully, you can't top that. And I hope and believe that people will, I know they already do, because I've been reached out to by so many people who love it, and they'll be back in the theaters. I'm hopeful.
Yeah, I agree. So I'm curious, with all these tech things that we have to do, have you had some gadget upgrades?
Oh my gosh, I have totally my gadget upgrades. I mean, I have tons of. So this is my workstation for the sit down with LB. So you already know this is a new mic I have, and I have lights, a ring light, and microphone. Is this Elgato Stream Deck, so I can change the scenes and so I've been upgrading, but I want to do it, and I want to try to do it well. I don't want to just randomly do it, and I want to do it and try to put out good content. Again, I hope to do good work as far as like asking some of the questions to my colleagues, even things that we've been asked before, or perhaps in a different way, or some of the things that people might not even think of. When I spoke to Angel last week, I talked about hair and makeup. And, for some people, there's my cousin Inga, for some people, they don't even think about that. But a lot of times you go to these theaters, they don't have the appropriate hair or makeup, the lighting, the costuming, all these things. As a Black person, you want to make sure that you look the part. I'm 5'5" and a half, 5'5" or 5'5" and a half. I claim the 5'5" and a half because that makes me feel better. But You know, but if I'm playing the role of a prince, you have to have a different mindset, perhaps, of how you dress me, opposed to a guy that looks like Gaston from Beauty and the Beast. I'm different. I believe I can sing and act the role, and I know I can offer that. But I think the costuming and the lights and the makeup and the wigs, they all have to work together to make sure that this aspect, or this, this idea of disbelief that we're trying to transmit on an opera stage is believable, because it's not doing us any favors by not having the appropriate things to make us look more the part, if you want to call it that.
Right. Well, and nobody, because everyone in the theater production wants it to be a good overall show and a good product. So they all have to work together for it to be the best.
Yeah. But so again, the issues and just kind of like evening the leveling the playing field is really what we want to try to do. But just to bring these issues to the forefront so we can talk about them and help other people know how to navigate these things.
Yeah. So do you think, I mean, you might not know yet, but once you get back on the road, do you anticipate continuing the series on the road?
I've only had one episode, but after the one episode, several people reached out to me and was like, oh my gosh, this is great. And so I think I have it set up so I can be somewhat mobile. Maybe I won't take all of the hardware, and I'll take some of it, but I actually you can tell me, how do you think about it? I actually like being the interviewer and asking some of the questions and leading the conversation,
really cool.
because it really it makes you think in a different way than you had been doing it before. So I like it. So maybe I will continue. I've already been asked about continuing Coffee and a Song and some of the other things I've been doing too. So we will see. But I believe that this is the beginning of something that'll go on for a little while.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. That's why I love that a lot of projects that are being created now have the potential to be more than a Corona project, Right.
It starts with an idea, and some things, they just really flourish into something else. Everything won't be. Some people will find out that this is maybe a little bit too much to maintain, or the frequency at which you do it may be a little bit different. But I had already been doing some things. I was doing some stuff on my LBTB, and I was doing the mini master classes, and I've always had, the idea to kind of like reach out and do fun stuff. So the seed has been planted, and maybe it'll continue past Corona. So we'll see.
Yes. Okay, I'm going to open the floor. If anyone has questions, I had seen some.
Bonjour.
Here. I think someone had asked, let me find him, Mexican music.
Mexican music.
Do you sing any Mexican music?
I sing, is it Maria Grever? Is Maria Grever, is she Mexican? Maria Grever? Yeah. So I did, so this is Júrame, yes?
Yes.
Júrame. So I've done that before. I think I've done a couple pieces, but I had talked to one of my colleagues, and we had toyed with the idea of me coming to Mexico and doing some concerts together. And so we will see. I have never performed in Mexico. I hope to be invited someday. And so we'll see if that works out.
So I'm actually from Argentina, and when I shared that you were going to be here, I had a bunch of people, commenting like, oh my God, he was supposed to come to Teatro Colón.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was just there maybe 2 years ago. I went there I went there with my really, really, really good friend, his wife and my wife. We all went there, and I wanted to see the Teatro Colón. And so I reached out to some of the people in the theater, and they were like, we don't know who you are, so you can't come in. Yeah. I was like, okay, fine. And so I was excited to go back this year, and so hopefully we can reschedule. I was supposed to do the Pearl Fishers there, but and the recital with Pretty Yende, who's a good friend of mine, but that stuff's put on hold, and hopefully it'll come back. So I plan to be back in Argentina. So
yes, I'm sure you will love. I mean, it's a magical place. We have a question.
Yeah, I see that. Do you prefer singing German lead or Italian bel canto style pieces, and excuse me, how do you attack them differently in practice? Um, you know, when my voice teacher discovered early on that he felt that I had a voice suitable for bel canto, that's where I felt the most at home.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the style that I've, you know, gotten a chance to work on for many, many years and to refine that craft. But
Mm-hmm.
I do love German lead. And so I like the idea of being at least decent at both of them, where I don't have to pick and choose. One of my favorite singers of all times is Fritz Wunderlich. And I remember that he had approached this pianist named Hubert Giesen, and Hubert Giesen told Fritz Wunderlich that he wasn't that great of a leader singer, but he went on to become one. So, very much so, I feel like I have a lot to learn. German is not a language that comes easily to most Americans because we don't have our language. It is similar in ways, but in certain sounds that we don't have. And so, in order for us to try to get the ich laut and all these different things, the umlauts, this is very difficult. So I like the fact that I will be better in a year from now than I am today. And so I'm always constantly working. I've already done Die Liebe, and I want to do Die Schöne Müller, but to continue to refine my languages so I can be an effective lead singer and Italian singer and a chanson singer, because these are all things that interest me. So I
Yeah.
hope that answers your question. Yeah.
We have more Argentina Fun Club here. Rumor has it that you're starting to compose. Are you currently writing a new work? Woo!
I actually know who wrote that, and I'm going to deal with that person after we get off here. No.
But now you have to answer.
No, I'm not a composer per se. But you know, when recently we did this song cycle called "The Cycle of My Being," you know, and it talked about Black men in America, and I'm happy to have contributed to the text, not necessarily the music, but obviously being a singer and a performer, you can contribute in a way, how you enunciate, how you deliver something, how you really try to put the weight of something, even if it was intended from the composer to do it a different way. I'm not a composer, but I'm a contributor. So currently right now, there's nothing on my desk as far as the things I'm writing, but I'm always thinking about music, and so who knows what will happen, but I'm not a composer.
Yet. We have an interesting, tricky question here. I'm a baritone, but many people are telling me that I'm a tenor. What do? I don't think I am.
Well, the main thing is, you know, many people, who's that? And yes, thank you, Sarah, for mentioning Terrence and Tyshawn, my contributors, Cycle of My Being. These were the composers, the librettist. So thank you for their work in that Cycle of My Being. But for the people that are hearing that they're a tenor, it depends on who's saying it. If you have a teacher or someone, a coach, primarily a teacher, who believes that and feels that they have the knowledge to be able to tell you how to achieve performing as a tenor without doing harm to yourself. A lot of people who say that, someone's telling me I'm a tenor, they have this tug to be a tenor. They want to be a tenor. Being a tenor is great. Not kidding. No, but no, it's important to be surrounded by the right people, because I've seen careers that have been harmed by people trying to push them in that direction. I remember the late, great James King, when I went to Indiana University, he told me several times about the fact that he switched from baritone to tenor at the age of 36. So I say to some people, the baritones, don't be in a rush. Let the natural, organic process happen of, if you migrate towards tenor, or if that really where is you should be singing, I think it should happen. But the most important thing is that you're in the hands of someone that can guide you. Dimitri, this is a friend of mine. He's in Germany. This is one of my photography buddies. Sorry, it's coming on my screen, so I have to say hi. Yeah, but I think you must make sure that you're in the hands of people that can guide you, and so you don't do yourself harm. So there's trust there, but find that right person who can help you.
Great answer. We had someone here asking if you had ever been to Turkey.
Oh, have I ever been to Turkey? I haven't. Do I ever have stage fright or nerves? Do you do anything to calm it if you have? Hey, by the way, that's my, I love Tele. This is my friend. I love Tele. She's in Amsterdam, I believe. I love her. Hi, Tele. Do I have stage fright? You know, years ago, I had this thing when I was doing a competition in Oklahoma. And not that I was nervous, because I had been on stage so much when I was in high school with show choir, that performing, and I worked at an amusement park for 4 summers, so getting up and performing in front of people was just something that was kind of not easy, but you just got used to it. You tuned out all the extraneous noise. But when I was doing this competition, I was singing by myself, just me and the pianist, and people were actually competing to win money and prizes. So it changed the stakes, you know?
Yeah.
But I remember having this calm come over me, because I went through my mind and I said, I'm here because I should be. I'm here because I've worked hard. I'm here because I've prepared. I'm not here by accident. They didn't pick a random group of numbers and say, come on stage and do this. Obviously, my talent has got me to this point. I'm in the finals now because I've been riding my talent. And so me being nervous is going to be detrimental to me having a good showing of myself. People come to the theater because they want to be entertained. And so if I'm thinking about me, that's not going to do them any good. So let's not think about me. Let's just think about doing the best I can, servicing what the composer wrote. And so I remember having such a tremendous piece that I went out on stage and I was like, this is not about me. And I felt like I could get out of the way so that the composer could be in the way and people could enjoy. And I could use the talent that I had to do as well as possible. And that is something that I have taken to all of the, important debuts that I've had, to try to deflect it or not to put too much weight, but know that I'm there because I should be there. Because I've done all the things to be there. And so that's the thing that helps me be calm about performing on any stage, from the Met, the Scala, Vienna, Berlin, Munich, all of them, Covent Garden. I never got nervous because I was just like, I'm here because I should be. And that's not arrogance. Yeah. That's confidence. And it's based on stuff I had done over and over and over again that I could depend on stage. And then I could know, I would feel that I should be there.
Yes. Oh, that's such a great practical answer. Because we get like so many like, oh yeah, just like breathe, that's so useful.
Beta blockers and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Some people get nervous, and I have some good friends, people who I adore, and I'm not going to mention names, but some people take beta blockers because they really get so much anxiety. But I'm just like, once we walk out of the theater, the world is still going to go on. So it's fine.
So we have a minute and a half, but I want to touch quickly on this question. Do you have any secret tips for Rossini?
Who's trying to get my secrets? Who's trying to? No, I'm just kidding. No. I will say that, I had been told early on that I had a certain, affinity towards Rossini, and it was something that I was born to do, per se. That's what one of my teachers told me. But I remember my undergrad teacher, his name is Fritz Roberts, he told me, you have to make sure that when you're singing Rossini, you have a real roadmap. You know what you're doing, you know where you're going, but you can't spend too much time there. Okay? So people ask me about singing the coloratura. I have to know that every single note in that and what it is, and it has to be given, attention. But I can't focus on every single note. So getting it in your body, getting it in your mind, knowing exactly what it is, what's written on it, the rhythms and notes and stuff like that, that's what's written. As long as I know it and have it there, and then I can make sure that I can sing it in an idea rather than singing it from note to note to note to note to note. Make it be an idea. Make it be a musical expression. So my approach to Rossini is always that expressivity. Even if I'm saying one word, making sure that it has a meaning. Why am I doing all of this turning around?
Yeah.
It's just one word. But if it's supposed to express his happiness, or that he's jubilant, or he's sad.
The video's gonna end.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time, Larry. Thank you.
There you go.